It's Danny from the Lassercast, joined as always by my brother in arms, Pete, and we're here to talk about another Shudder exclusive horror film, Glorious, from Rebekah McKendry. Pete, when you woke up this morning, did you think I need to talk about Lovecraftian monsters and glory holes?
I feel like that most days, so yeah.
Yeah, I mean that is pretty much the setup for this really interesting little movie. Do we want to plug some stuff before we jump into the review?
Yeah, I mean, well, let's just tell people, if you guys have not seen it, it's on Shudder, and so you can go watch it before you watch our review. It's very quick; it's 79 minutes. As far as plugging things, I'll do my part for real quick. I interviewed a horror writer, Robert Essig, a while ago, but I just went back to work and things have gotten real busy, so I haven't edited that video. But this week, my Robert Essig interview is going up. We have interviews coming up. Tomorrow, we're going to interview Keith Lansdale about a comic that he's adapted from one of his father's stories, Joe Lansdale. Later in the month, I'm going to interview Michael J. Seidlinger, who is another author I met at Book People like 2 weeks ago. So, like, the interviews just keep on coming, and I'm really grateful for all the horror writers we get to talk to. They're just so kind. You've reviewed a whole bunch of movies, haven't you?
So, yeah, just this morning on the channel, I did another one of those little short take reviews. I've been going to the movies a lot with my Regal Unlimited card, and it's a good time to be a horror fan. I did a quick reviews in the same video of Fall, Bodies, 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 and Orphan First Kill.
Yeah.
In short, I recommend them all, but if you want to, and there's no spoilers in that video, so you can watch it and then, spend the weekend at the movies. But yeah, aside from that, Charlotte and I got to go see Coraline, which is one of her favorite movies.
Nice.
It was randomly put back into theaters for one day by Fathom Events, and Charlotte loved it, so we went and saw it, and we did a review. So there's that. And yeah, you're just on a quest to interview every horror writer known to man, so which is amazing. And great conversations.
Yeah, thank you, sir. I hang out with a bunch of horror writers. Actually, I have my writers group meeting coming up this week, and we've had some of them on the show before. We've had Joshua McMillan. He was on our episode where we did Moloch. We also interviewed the husband of Megan Stockton, who's in my writers group, and I want to give a little shout out to them because they always watch our videos and stuff. I even have their beard oil right here. We'll do a little plug like we used to do for Ghost Girl Greetings. But I got Patient Zero beard oil. That's why my beard is so sexy and thick right now, as opposed to it's like 14-year-old boy pubic hair that it usually is. We're off to a good start. Let's talk about glory holes.
Yeah, I was just going to say, sexy beard oil would make good for the glory holes of the rest stop bathrooms of this horror film that we're going to talk about.
Well, so with the glory hole aspect, right? You mentioned Rebekah McKendry. I'm assuming that you're kind of familiar with her. You probably follow her on Twitter. Is that the case?
Yeah, I've seen her other feature horror movie, All the Creatures Were Stirring, which was really fun. I think it might still be on Shudder. I'm not sure. It's kind of a holiday anthology movie. She also had I think a scene in Tales from Halloween or Tales of Halloween, which was another anthology movie that was pretty cool.
Yeah.
She also worked for Fangoria for 10 years. So this is a woman who, her horror cred is unquestioned.
Right.
And so I was really looking forward to this. Barbara Crampton is an executive producer on it, and she's been pimping the hell out of this on Twitter as well, to the point where I in my head, I thought Barbara Crampton was in the movie. It turns out she's just an executive producer. But yeah, this movie's got some pretty good horror cred behind it before you even get to the movie.
Yes. Yeah, like I know that once I saw the names on it too, because obviously like Rebekah McKendry, she's like one of the people I see on Twitter. I knew about the Fangoria thing. I think when I looked her up on Wikipedia, it also said that she went from there to be like editor-in-chief on Bloomhouse.com. And then as far as people that wrote the movie, it was written by three guys: Todd Rigney, Joshua Hull, and David Ian McKendry. And I know Joshua Hull. I see him on Twitter a lot too. There's a lot of times where like I'll see a person on there that's like their screenwriter or they have some kind of horror cred and I just start following them randomly. And it kind of leads me to things like this. And so I felt like my feed really blew up with this movie this week. And I was like, you mentioned reviewing it. I was like, yeah, let's definitely get on that.
Yeah, no, I also it's a movie that I feel like it's right in our wheelhouse. We did an entire Lovecraft month last year. Before there was we actually recorded a video about Color Out of Space that we had to kind of shelve because the director had a lot of issues that and controversies surrounding him. But if you just look at the poster like behind that you have set up, the poster evokes that very Lovecraftian Color Out of Space vibe. There's even scenes in the movie that made me think about Color Out of Space a little bit. And of course, I mean, there's no hiding the Lovecraftian tones of the movie. Once you, there's a part, and we're gonna get into spoilers here, but there's this great part where, in order to like pronounce the character's name, he makes him like grab his tongue, and I'm like, if anybody's ever read Lovecraft, like all of his gods and monsters have these incredibly, that's like part of it is that you can't pronounce their names. They're like the unknown, the unspeakable. And it just was really funny how he's like, I'm a stickler for pronunciation. And he makes him hold his tongue as he says it.
Yeah. Wonderful freaking scene. I of course felt the exact same way. That's a really good comparison to compare it to Color Out of Space. And you're right about the artwork too. I absolutely thought Lovecraftian when I watched this movie too. And I was thinking like that term gets used a lot and we use it a lot on this show. I was wondering like if you could come up with a list of bullet points that are like, this counts as Lovecraftian, what would you put on that list? And I have a couple of contributions. I want to see if you agreed or not. I think like by default, if the creature is some sort of like intangible creature that you can't put in a box, like, or it's like it's a werewolf, it's a vampire, where it's just like it's this fucking mass over here, you know, like we don't know what it is. And then I think that for me, like what I consider to be like the definitive Lovecraftian thing is when it's a force that like you don't understand and it's like so powerful that we're like inconsequential to it. I think that's like bullet point number one. What else would you add to that list?
I think that's a great starting point. For me with Lovecraft, it's always the fear of the unknown. So again, like what you said, like something that you can't fathom or understand. It's not a describable monster, but if you were going to describe it, typically there are tentacles of sorts.
Right.
There's also sort of like just like a mashing of like parts. You know what I mean?
I do.
Yeah, like I always think of John Carpenter's The Thing, and how when it's half dog and it's part spider and it's part human and part extraterrestrial space being. But with Lovecraft, there's always the idea of the older gods, like beings that were around before humanity existed, gods that are older than the gods that we pray to, and they control things, and they're always waiting, and then they're always there, underneath, under the ocean, or just outside of our solar system. They're always waiting. And people typically get driven mad at some points. It's various things of that nature.
Really good bullet points there. It's funny because there was one movie that this movie reminded me a lot about. However, I wouldn't say that that other movie was Lovecraftian, because you made a really good point just now. You said that it's about gods that kind of existed before the gods we worship. And I felt like you could take the mythology in this story and kind of plug it into like the Christian kind of Genesis story. And like, you know, there is like a God and then he has a kid and could be like God and Satan kind of thing. However, the movie that this artwork behind this reminds me of, and I also got a lot of vibes when I watched this movie, is also on Shudder, and it's Revealer. Did you get any kind of feeling of that?
Well, I think they both work perfectly together. It's really funny you say that, because this morning on Twitter, somebody put the posters to both of those movies next to each other and was like, "This is the perfect double feature." And I'm like,
Yep.
"Yeah, that would be." I mean, the posters look, they're both with the glowing purple, and also, I mean, we reviewed Revealer. We got to talk to Michael Moresi about it. Like, just the I wrote down two things. This movie, I really enjoyed this movie because it has two of my favorite things. It has an enclosed space, and it has a sub 80-minute runtime.
Oh,
and
yes.
and if you can pull off a movie that is in such a confined space, my ultimate go-to is maybe the movie with the smallest confined space of all time, Phone Booth, written by Larry Cohen, starring Colin Farrell. That movie is so tense, and it literally takes place in a box. And there's stuff that happens outside of it, but really Colin Farrell and Kiefer Sutherland. And the other thing about that movie that it reminded me of is J.K. Simmons in this movie is amazing, but you never see him. Right. Whereas Kiefer Sutherland is really in Phone Booth. He's just the voice on the phone for 99.9% of the movie. He's just the voice on the phone, and that's it.
Right.
And really, J.K. Simmons is just the voice in the stall for this entire film. And so you have that enclosed space, and you don't overstay your runtime. And Revealer had that same thing. You were in like the pornographic, what do they call that?
Like a
nudie
peep
booth.
Show.
Yeah, the peep show. And it went into the underground, into the tunnels, but it was really just one space for most of the movie. And really, that's what this was too. You're in a roadside bathroom, and you have a few flashbacks, and you have like that opening 10 minutes just to get to the roadside bathroom. But really, the whole movie takes place almost Saw style in a dirty bathroom. And you mentioned, we've been talking about posters. Let's take a minute. I don't know who the artist was, but the image on the stall of that Lovecraftian being with the hole was unbelievable. Like, it really set the tone for the movie. And you almost got the vision that J.K. Simmons is talking out of the mouth of this piece of art on a stall door or stall bathroom, and it really good, really incredible art.
I 100% agree. Like, I didn't actually know what this movie was about. You know, I didn't even put the connection of like Glory Hall. I didn't even have that connection. I didn't know what it was. I went into this totally blind, and so I watched it, and all of a sudden, you know, J.K. Simmons' voice is coming from this other stall, and you know, they frame it to where it looks like it's coming from that thing, like you said, and I was like, what the fuck is this? It's this weird kind of coincidence, because my coworkers this whole week, like my boss accidentally said glory hole at one point, so my coworkers have been like just obsessing over it and throwing glory hole jokes into our work as much as possible, and then here comes this movie. It's a weird coincidence, but just before we move off of Revealer, I want people to go check out that interview with Michael Moresi, because I think that was one of our best interviews we did. And we talk about Revealer in depth. And part of that interview was talking about how the movie came about. And I feel like a similar discussion must have taken place for this movie. Like, we're going to, like, hopefully if we're all alive, like 10 years from now, we're going to look back at like the COVID era of movies, and we're going to like look back, and there's going to be all these movies that kind of fit a similar framework. And it's going to be that it's like two characters trapped in a place, and there's something crazy going on beyond it, which is like, boy, isn't that the fucking metaphor for our lives for the past like 3 years, right?
Well,
And so
you bring that
there's
up,
many.
and
Go ahead.
it also, I'm sorry, we're talking over each other. My bad.
Yeah.
But that reminds me of We Need to Do Something, which is another movie that we spoke about, and we interviewed Max Booth III, who wrote that novel, and that's essentially what that movie was. It was two guys. It was a family trapped in a bathroom. There was a weird kind of unknown presence outside the door. There was, weird things are going on to the family in the bathroom. So yeah, there's a lot of connections to that. But I really agree with what you're saying about there's so many of these movies that are coming out now where you have that enclosed space, very limited number of actors in the movie, very limited number of characters. You could tell that they're following COVID protocols and everything. Max Booth III even spoke to us about that, and about like the making of that movie and how like rigid they were with those protocols. So I could totally see that being a thing here. Yeah, it's going to be weird in about a decade when we look back. Like, I think they're doing like incredible work given some of the, especially these lower budget horror films that, they're not Marvel movies. They can't just go out and, put in all this CGI and stuff. So yeah, to do a movie like this where it's effectively one location, it's effectively one actor for most of the movie. And J.K. Simmons is probably 1,000 miles away in a recording studio reading his lines. And doing a fantastic job, by the way. But it's really, really cool.
If it's during COVID time, it's very possible J.K. Simmons is in his house, like in his basement or something, recording those lines, right? Yeah, talking about like COVID and the restrictions, even when they do flashbacks and there's like a party scene where Wes runs into Sharon, that's his like ex-girlfriend or whatever. It's funny because you can kind of tell it's COVID-y because like all the people at the party are like 6 feet apart from each other, But like you made a really, really great point just there where it's like they're doing amazing stuff considering the confines of what they have. And it's kind of like when you go to make a movie, you have this established budget and you have to kind of sacrifice some things and you have to choose, okay, I'm going to put a lot of money into this. And I feel like what happens with these movies is they are automatically sacrificing big casts. They're automatically sacrificing multiple locations. So all the expenses that come with those, they just don't have to pay. And so they put it into practical effects, And that's why you have all this weird creature design in this. And then you have weird stuff in We Need to Do Something. And then you have weird stuff in Revealer. It's like these movies where I'm sure the budgets are very small, but then it's like when a creature comes on or something weird happens, it's like, whoa, that's like better than I was expecting.
Yeah. I mean,
good.
There's scenes towards the end of the movie that I was like, whoa, okay. That's pretty impressive.
Exactly. So why don't we just go actually into the movie itself now, and let's talk about what's good about this movie. I was also thinking we could incorporate one thing. I'm hoping we could do this for every one of our reviews moving forward. You know how like when we started talking about movies of 2022, we broke them down into 3 categories. It's like, you got to see this. Go out of your way to see this movie. It was then category 2, it was a good movie. And then category 3 was, it's kind of a disappointment. I wish it could have been better. So I think like at the end of this, let's see where this movie falls for both of us. Is that cool?
Okay. Sweet.
All right. So let's talk about some strengths about this movie. What do you like?
Well, first of all, we mentioned J.K. Simmons. Let's give some props to the guy who's actually on screen most of the time. Ryan Kwanten, he's one of these actors. He's like oh God, I'm going to forget his name now. Patrick Wilson. He's like a Patrick Wilson. He's like a Sam Neill. He's a type of actor who very low key has a great horror cred. And, everybody knows him as Sookie's brother on True Blood for years and years. But we know him also from Dead Silence, James Wan's Dead Silence. He was the lead in that movie. He also did an episode of Creepshow, the new Creepshow series. He was excellent in. He tends to, he's a good actor, but he tends to get a lot of these little horror roles, and he makes the most of this movie. I mean, this is his movie. It's him and the voice of J.K. Simmons in a bathroom for effectively 75 minutes. And he kills it to me. I think he did a great job. J.K. Simmons, even just the voice work, I loved. I'm a big Lovecraft fan, so I love the idea of, like, I like that there was a lot of offbeat humor in it. I want to tell you a story, Wes, and then, like, in the middle of it, Wes needs to take pee breaks.
Yeah.
I thought that was really funny. I don't know why it just, like, came out of nowhere and made me laugh.
Yeah.
And just, there's a lot of this movie that is just offbeat. It's ridiculous in a way. And so you're kind of laughing along with obviously we're talking spoilers. There's the scene at the end. We keep saying glory hole, glory hole. He says, I need a part of you to satisfy me. And Wes thinks he wants him to put, into the glory hole. And then he goes, what are you doing? That's not what I want. And then you're like, oh, what do you want? I need a piece of your liver. So there was a lot. I thought the performances were great. I think there's a lot of very dark humor to this movie that I enjoyed. Like I said, two of my favorite things, especially in a horror movie, are building up tension in an enclosed space, a confined space, and not overstaying your welcome. I am perfectly fine with long movies. I took Charlotte to see RRR 3 hours and 10 minutes at the Staten Island Alamo the other day.
Oh my God.
I love that movie. It's my favorite movie of the year. It's 3+ hours long. But that said, I also love a movie that does not overstay its run time. And this movie was perfect. 79 minutes door to door. No wasted time. I don't really have many flaws. The only flaw I think I would have is that there is a slight twist at the end that I saw coming from almost the very beginning of the movie.
Yeah. So let's talk about that twist, because that actually, for me, that it started out with something that I really, really enjoyed, because the movie does the kind of thing where you're never outright told things in exposition dumps, which, that's, for me, that's my pet peeve. I hate exposition dumps. It's one of those kind of movies where you get little flashes of things and you're supposed to kind of piece it together. You just see like an image. And I do feel like, what was that? What was it called? Channel Zero? That was that horror show, right? Yeah, it was the guy that wrote the story that became Antlers. I forget his name, but, like, he's fucking awesome. And he did Channel Zero. But I feel like Channel Zero was like the first horror thing I can remember that really captured that. You just get little flashes of things and you're like, okay, well, what is that? What's going on? And with this, you think that
Nick Antosca, is that his name?
Yes. Sherry would be very happy with you because she's a big Nick Antosca fan. But like with this, that there's some kind of backstory. That Wes isn't with this woman Sharon that he keeps flashing back to. That, like, he's heartbroken and
Brenda,
something
right?
happened to
Isn't Brenda's the girl that he is obsessed with?
Brenda? Oh, I'm sorry. What the fuck? I looked it up on Wikipedia and okay. So Brenda. Oh, thank God you fixed that. Whatever. His ex-girlfriend, right? So he's sitting there and he's at this rest stop and he has a picture of her. He's like, just looks so utterly depressed. But okay, well, what's going on? Why are they broken up? There's got to be some sort of, like, upsetting reason why they're not together. They're going to reveal something, right? And I think that, like, what you're probably going to say in a minute is that, like, the twist of, like, the fact that he killed her, like, you kind of predicted that. I actually was a little bit let down with that twist because I feel like I haven't seen a horror movie or a movie in general in a long time where it was like, a person was just devastated because they broke up with someone. Like, I feel like every time we see a horror movie and people aren't together, it's because one person died, right? And I think maybe that's just because it's horror, right? And someone has to die, right? But I actually really liked the idea of maybe he's this fucking depressed and pathetic because he broke up with this girl that he loved. I liked that because I feel like I never see that in any kind of movie anymore.
It's funny you said that, because one of the movies I just did a little review of is the movie Fall, which is not a horror movie in the traditional sense of the word. It's more about, like, obviously fear of heights and stuff like that. But the movie starts, and this isn't a spoiler because this is like the first 5 minutes of the movie. There's three people, a couple and their friend. They're all mountain climbers, and the husband falls and he dies. And that's what triggers the whole movie. It's like this woman is depressed because her husband died. And a year later, the friend is like, come on, you need to snap out of it. Let's go do something crazy. And they go to climb this tower. And I felt like watching that movie, I was like, oh man, this is so cliche. I've seen this before. Like I've seen, like, I always hate, there's something that always irks me. It's like when somebody's dead, but you call their cell phone just to hear their voice. And it's like, I get it. Grief exists, but it's also very cliche in movies. Like, that's a cliche thing. Like, I agree with you. Like, that's kind of, I saw this twist coming almost at the beginning of the movie. From like from the second you saw that red box, I was like, I don't know. You know,
not many good things come out of Redbox. So yeah, I agree. You know, but no, you know what it is. I think the reason why it's so cliche is just because, you know, horror is kind of like a vessel that we use to kind of get over things, right? And I think like grief is like the biggest thing. You know, for the past, you know, over a year, you know, your father died, and you very frequently reference how like a movie helped you because it kind of helps you deal with that, you know. For me, yeah, obviously I've dealt with loss in my life and stuff, but I think there's something so potent too to that whole, you break up with somebody, and like I've been in a couple of bad breakups and I've been just fucking like depressed and like on the floor, and I think that Ryan Kwanten did such an amazing job portraying that like I was like, oh, this is cool. I was like really digging that. And then when they revealed that it was like, oh, well, he actually is like a serial killer and he killed her, it kind of turned me off a little bit. But I wanted to make up one point before I forgot. You talked a lot about Lovecraft before, and then you kind of mentioned J.K. Simmons. I think with like Lovecraft, a lot of times when we think about like what a creature might sound like, or like any kind of weird monster, we think it would probably have like some sort of like raspy kind of eerie voice, or it'd be sort of like this foreign kind of, you know, like maybe they have some kind of weird accent or something that you can't place. J.K. Simmons has always been like kind of a very straight man for his like delivery, very just like no nonsense kind of bullshit guy, right? And for voice acting, did you ever watch the Invincible cartoon on Amazon?
I've heard it's great, but no, I didn't.
Yeah,
I heard it's a good companion to The Boys.
Oh yes, oh yes. Invincible is incredible, and I know you love The Boys so much. I recommend you go watch that too. Then, but he's the dad. He's Mark Grayson's dad. He's Invincible's dad on that show, and he's incredible on that show too. And that's just voice acting as well. And I just think it was like inspired casting to have him play this fucking like elder tentacle monster, you know?
Yeah.
So, why don't we talk about just like the weird shit that happens in the movie itself? Like, is there any kind of weird part that you really enjoyed?
I mean, the movie, I like, I pretty much like I said, like my only real criticism is that I saw the twist coming. I don't even really mind the twist. It was just that I thought thought it was very obvious from the beginning. But in terms of like the weird stuff that happens, like you said, I think part of my enjoyment of this movie was just how straight J.K. Simmons plays it, where he has a very mundane, traditionally American voice. He has no accent at all. No, like you can't put, he's not a Southerner. He's not a New Yorker. He's not, you know, like he's just like, you know, hello, I'm in the bathroom with you and you cannot get out. And he just like the way he enunciates everything. So like, the whole movie, the whole conceit of this movie is freaking weird. So I can't really pick out any specific moment. Like, I just think Ryan Kwanten acting crazy in a bathroom, like put yourself in his shoes. I thought he does a great job of how would I be in that situation.
Yeah.
Hearing this, just traditionally American voice coming out of a stall.
Yeah.
Telling me that I have like a part in the fate of the universe, because telling me this weird story of how he, feelings ripped open their father and created the universe, and he was created to destroy life, and all this bizarre stuff. I do like that they gave us the one kill in the movie, which gives us the image on the poster of him holding a leg.
Yeah.
I thought that was pretty great, because I'm staring at the poster thinking, okay, how does he get the leg?
Right. Right. So bizarre. Yeah. You mentioned like real early on, you compared it to Saw at one point. I think that's a really good point, because I did think about Saw as well. And it's kind of funny because like Jigsaw's voice, that's kind of what you would expect to be coming out of that stall, like that kind of raspy Jigsaw voice. But then you get that J.K. Simmons voice, which is just so perfect. It's such a like this weird juxtaposed thing, because it's that weird picture that's on the bathroom stall, And what's the name of the guy that is in Saw and he's in Robin Hood Men in Tights? Carrie
Elways.
Carrie Elways. I felt like, I think that maybe they were trying to get a little bit of Saw in there, or like reference Saw, because I feel like Ryan Kwanten kind of looks like Carrie Elways in this, even like the clothing he's wearing and stuff, and where like the blood and stuff on him is.
I can see
like
that.
One thing that I really liked about this movie is like J.K. Simmons is like so straightforward, like you said, and like he says like, you have feces from 12 different people on you. Would you like me to tell you who they are and like what order? Right? Like I like little touch. Go ahead.
The dark humor in that, like there's line, like when I was just thinking that before you said it, where he's like, he goes, "Oh God, I touched my face after I hugged the toilet." And he goes, "Yes, you have 12 people's fecal matter on you." I was like, that's so bonkers and crazy, and I love shit like that. And it made it for such an enjoyable movie, especially when and I don't want this to sound like I'm saying like it. The fact that it's 80 minutes long is perfect. It's not that like Rebekah McKendry can't make a great 2-hour movie. It's just this material fit perfectly into its runtime. And I'm so glad that it didn't try to give us expanded mythology or give us an epilogue of sorts where, and it actually plays out into a wonderful end credit song. Like a very upbeat, fun little ditty. Like after this crazy Lovecraftian glory hole monster movie in a bathroom.
Right.
So I love the movie's dark sense of humor. I like the two lead performances were fantastic. I really liked it.
Yeah. Well, I think that we should, like, because there is a lot to praise too. I realize, kind of talking about this movie, I'm going to tell you where I rank it, and then maybe you can tell me too. But for me, I was originally going to rank it in that middle ground of like, it's a good movie, But the more I think about it, the more we discuss it, I actually want to put it in that, hey, you should go out of your way to see this ranking. And the reason why I was going to put it in that ranking is because it's very creative with the limited amount of space and what they can do with it. For instance, when they do tell that mythology, they almost make it like it's graffiti on a bathroom stall. And I just think that's so creative. It's like this moving imagery that Got, that's what Wes calls him in the movie, Got. He puts on the wall to show like the history of the fucking cosmos, right? And when we talk about mythology, there's actually one other part I really like in the movie too. And it's when Wes talks about his father. He has this whole little speech where God is basically saying, like, do a noble sacrifice, like give your life so that everything can exist. You just have to like give a piece of your liver and everything will survive, right? And he's like, don't be selfish. And then Wes does this whole speech about how his father was like this hardworking guy, but he always let his mom know about it, right? And like always kind of guilted her and made her feel bad about it, to the point where she shot herself in the head. And that's essentially like his origin story for being a serial killer. And honestly, that's something I can kind of relate to. I mean, like, I don't like drive my wife nuts or anything like that, but I know that like we sometimes have contention about the fact that she's like a stay-at-home mom and I'm, a guy that goes to work every day. There's that tension there. And I think that was very dark and very like real in a movie that's just fucking bonkers, So that's why I would rank this movie kind of high. So I'm assuming that you're ranking it in there too. Am I wrong?
I also just remember, because you brought up again with the dark humor, where he goes, "Come on, you could live with only 25% of your liver," and he puts the shard of glass, and he's about to do it, and then Goth goes, "Other side,"
right?
He goes, "Oh, thanks."
Right.
Yeah. So I think I'm kind of I think I'm on the exact same path as you. I think talking about this movie made me like it more. Because I realized watching it, I was laughing a lot, but I didn't realize until we started talking just how much I enjoyed the dark humor of it. And you brought up the way that Rebekah McKendry and her crew uses that space, the way they use the artwork, that amazing piece of artwork on the wall of the stall, and then, like you said, the way that they tell this outer worldly story, but do it through graffiti on the wall, is fantastic. I think I would put this at the very top of the middle category, towards the bottom of the, I absolutely think people should watch this movie. People should go out of their way to see it. Yes. And if you have a Shudder subscription, there are far worse things you can do with 79 minutes than watch Glorious. Absolutely. Right. Is it a movie that's going to be in my top 10 at the end of the year? Maybe. But I definitely would put it on, like, almost in the middle of those top two categories. Yeah, okay. I really enjoyed it. I don't really have anything like to overly criticize, and you can't argue with a 79-minute horror movie.
Yeah, that's on the box art right there. Danny Torkel, Lasercast, it says, if you have a Shudder account, there's a lot worse you could do with 79 minutes of your time.
Like we always joke about that Saturday Night Live song, that Pete Davidson did, Short Ass Movie. When you're like, I woke up this morning, we had planned to record this around 10:45 Eastern time. I woke up around 8:30 and I was like, I have plenty of time.
I can go to Dunkin' Donuts too.
So yeah, I definitely recommend this. I think it's a really fun little movie. Good performances, shockingly good effects, great artwork. Yeah.
Awesome. Yeah, man. Well, I appreciated this movie more from talking to you about it, and so I thank you for that. You guys should definitely go check it out if you have a Shudder account. And so, we already kind of did our plug at the beginning of the video. We're going to interview Keith Lansdale tomorrow, like I said, and that interview is going to come up after my Robert Essig interview that's coming up this week. But if you guys have not subscribed to our channel already, please do. Danny puts out content like crazy on this channel, and there is always us discussing horror movies, and then we are always talking about that we're always interviewing people. I saw there's actually a couple of like series coming up soon, and one thing I was thinking was on the Anchor Pete channel, like Yellow Jackets was a big hit. I got to see if Sherry wants to come back to watch Yellow Jackets season 2, but if not, maybe we'll put Yellow Jackets on here. Maybe you and me can discuss it for season 2. Have you seen the fucking cast? They've started.
I saw they just added Elijah Wood.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What was I going to say? It also, I mean, it's almost the end of August, which means we're heading into the best time of year for our channel.
Yes.
Chucky season 2 is coming out. Mike Flanagan's got stuff coming to Netflix soon. He's got the Midnight Club coming.
Right.
And there's that Guillermo del Toro show that's coming out,
Right.
which is like an anthology series with all these different horror directors. I mean, there's so much great stuff. Plus, horror movies coming out in theaters. There's a bunch coming out in early September. And then Halloween Ends comes out in October, of course. I'm sure we'll do that. So, yeah, there's so much. We're just getting into the good part of the year.
The juicy part. Yes, the juiciest part of the liver. But here we go. I'm going to do one last plug before I end the recording. I mentioned my writers group at the very beginning of this. One of the things I had to read from my writers group was Bunker Dogs by Gage Greenwood, who's in my writers group. And I feel like maybe unintentionally he wrote this sort of COVID-style story where it's this woman and this kid that she's babysitting, and they're in a bunker during like a World War III scenario, and it's crazy as fuck, and that's on Kindle Vella. So I plugged some beer juice and some Kindle Vella all in one shot. We're here. We're not getting any fucking money for it, but hopefully we got your views and your subscription. We'll see y'all real soon. Thanks.